Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us.
Yeah, glad to be back.
Today we're going to be looking at all this really crazy new military tech,
Yeah.
the kind of stuff we see in movies and think, oh, that'll never happen.
Right. Like, is this real?
Exactly.
Right.
We found some YouTube videos and articles talking about all this wild stuff,
Oh, yeah. I saw those. Those are crazy.
like AI, super soldiers,
hmm
invisible aircraft, and even weapons that, they sound like they're straight out of a video game.
They really do. It's unbelievable what they're coming up with.
One video showed this drone that can launch rockets,
Oh, wow.
like a mini Apache helicopter. It's insane.
Yeah.
And then there's this vacuum bomb
Right.
thing that sucks the air out of your
It
lungs.
sounds terrifying.
It does.
Yeah.
And then there's, adaptive camouflage where
Oh.
soldiers could basically become invisible.
Yeah, that's the one that always gets me.
Like, no, right?
Like, how is that even possible?
It's mind-blowing. But, it makes sense, right?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Militaries around the world are always trying to...
they have to be ahead of the game.
Right, exactly, to protect their people.
Protect their soldiers.
Make them more efficient, make
Right.
them more efficient,
Yeah.
improve their,
Capabilities.
capabilities, exactly.
And, national security and all that.
Exactly, all of that. So before we jump into the specifics,
Okay.
I think it's important to remember that some of this stuff,
It's still in development?
it's very much like the bleeding edge.
Absolutely.
Some of it is factual, based on, existing technology,
Uh-huh.
but some of it is, I guess you could say, more speculative.
Yeah, a bit more theoretical, for sure.
Theoretical, right. So as we go through this, I think it's important for us to
Keep an open mind,
keep an open mind, exactly.
but also be critical.
Yeah.
Think about the potential benefits,
hmm
but also the ethical dilemmas.
Definitely. Like, what are the consequences of this stuff,
For sure. Like,
Yeah.
where do we draw the line?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with this whole super soldier thing.
Okay, yeah.
It sounds like something out of, Captain America, right?
Right.
But apparently, DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, they're actually looking into things like genetic modification, neural interfaces,
Uh-huh.
and exoskeletons.
Real life Iron Man suits.
Yeah, basically.
It's incredible.
I know, right?
What they could do.
It's like, imagine soldiers who are, super strong.
Yeah.
They never get tired.
They can run forever.
They can even, control drones with their minds.
It's mind-blowing. I mean, the possibilities are just
I know.
endless, really.
It is.
But, it also makes you wonder,
What could go wrong?
yeah, exactly. Like, what happens when you start messing with human biology like that?
Right. And what about the ethical implications?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
Huge ethical concerns there.
What happens to a soldier's identity when they're so closely tied to technology?
Yeah, it's like, where does the human end and the machine begin?
Exactly. And who controls that?
It's a really slippery slope.
It is. It's a lot to think about.
Yeah, it definitely raises more questions than it answers.
It does. But it's fascinating nonetheless.
Oh, absolutely. It's the future of warfare unfolding right before our eyes.
It really is. All right, so we've got super soldiers, but then there's this whole other thing about aircraft becoming invisible.
Right. Like, how is that even possible?
I know, it sounds like something out of a movie. One of the videos talked about this triangular aircraft
Oh, yeah, I saw that one.
that can, fly silently
Mhm.
and is basically undetectable.
Supposedly developed at Area 51.
Yeah. Come on, is that real?
It's hard to say, right?
Right.
It sounds like a conspiracy theory.
It does, but then again, technology is advancing so rapidly.
That's true.
We have to at least consider the possibility.
Yeah, I guess so. But even if that specific aircraft is, a bit of a stretch, the technology behind it, like stealth technology and adaptive camouflage,
That's real.
that's real, and it's getting more and more advanced all the time.
It is. It's pretty incredible what they can do now.
It is. Like, they're developing materials that can manipulate light and sound waves.
Yeah, metamaterials.
Right, metamaterials. And these things can, bend light around an object.
Making it appear invisible.
Like, what?
It's wild.
That's insane. So it's not just about being, camouflaged. It's about actually bending light.
Yeah, disappearing altogether.
And sound, so you can't see it and you can't hear it.
Exactly, like a ghost.
That's insane.
It's like science fiction becoming reality.
It really is. And then there's adaptive camouflage, which is, almost as crazy.
It is, taking inspiration from nature, like the octopus.
Right. The octopus,
Yeah.
which can just, change its color and texture.
Blend in perfectly.
Yeah. And they're trying to do that with soldiers and vehicles.
Mm-hmm. Imagine that.
It's mind-blowing. Like, imagine you're on a battlefield.
Oh. And suddenly the enemy just disappears.
Poof, gone.
It'd be terrifying.
Absolutely. I mean, it would give you such a tactical advantage.
It would, but, it also makes you think about the ethical implications.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, what happens when you can't trust your own eyes?
Right. It's like, how do you even fight something you can't see?
And what happens when this technology falls into the wrong hands?
It's a scary thought. It's like we're entering a whole new era of warfare.
We are, and it's one that we need to approach very carefully.
We do. All right, so we've got super soldiers, we've got invisible aircraft. What else is out there?
Well, how about we talk about some of the crazy new weapons they're developing?
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
Because some of this stuff is, like,
Yeah.
next level.
We're talking weapons that are so advanced, it's almost hard to believe they're real.
It's like they've pulled them straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Right, like lasers and hypersonic missiles and railguns.
Those are definitely the big ones making headlines these days. No.
Yeah, those laser weapons always seem like something out of Star Wars.
Totally. But
Yeah.
now they're actually being developed and tested.
It's crazy. I mean, what makes them so different from, like, regular guns and missiles?
Well, for one thing, they travel at the speed of light,
It's you can't dodge them.
basically. Plus, they're incredibly precise.
Oh, so less collateral damage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You could target very specific points with pinpoint accuracy.
Wow. That's impressive. But some of the other weapons they talked about in these sources seem less about precision and more about just brute force.
Oh, yeah, like that TOS-1A vacuum bomb.
Ugh. Yeah, that thing sounds absolutely terrifying.
It's a pretty controversial weapon, for sure.
So how does it even work?
Well, it's a type of thermobaric weapon.
Mm.
So basically, it uses oxygen from the surrounding air to create this massive high-temperature explosion.
So it's like a giant fireball.
Kind of, but it's more than just the heat. It creates this incredibly powerful blast wave that just obliterates everything in its path.
And it sucks the air out of your lungs.
That's where the vacuum bomb name comes from. It literally creates a vacuum in the explosion zone.
That's insane. So it's like a double whammy, the explosion and then the suffocation.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And the damage it can cause is just devastating.
No wonder it's so controversial. I mean, ethically speaking, it seems like a very difficult weapon to justify using.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of ethical concerns around its use. It's indiscriminate and can cause massive casualties.
Yeah, it seems like a weapon that should only be used in the most extreme circumstances, if at all.
I think most people would agree with that. And then you've got other weapons like EMPs and ultrasonic sound weapons that raise their own ethical questions.
Oh, yeah, those were mentioned in the sources, too. So what are those all about?
Well, an EMP weapon essentially creates a huge burst of electromagnetic energy.
And that does what exactly?
It fries electronics. Anything
Uh-huh.
with a circuit board is vulnerable.
So you could take out enemy communications, radar systems, even vehicles?
Yep, all with a single pulse.
That sounds incredibly powerful and kind of scary if you think about how reliant we are on electronics these days.
It's definitely a game changer on the battlefield. And then there's ultrasonic sound weapons, which use high-frequency sound waves to incapacitate targets.
So it's like a sonic weapon.
Exactly. It can cause disorientation, nausea, pain, even physical damage, depending on the frequency and intensity.
I bet that's pretty unpleasant to be on the receiving end of.
I can't imagine it's fun, but it's often seen as a non-lethal alternative to traditional weapons.
Okay, so we've got all these offensive weapons, but what about defenses? Have there been any major advancements on that side of things?
Absolutely. Just as much innovation is happening in defensive technologies. They're always trying to find ways to better protect soldiers on the battlefield.
Makes sense. So what are some of the cool new things they're working on?
Well, body armor is constantly evolving. They're using new materials and designs to make it lighter, more flexible, and more effective at stopping bullets and shrapnel.
So soldiers are basically becoming walking tanks.
In a way, yeah. The goal is to give them the best possible protection while still allowing them to move and operate effectively.
That's amazing. And what about this tactical augmented reality thing I saw that mentioned in one of their articles?
Oh yeah, TAR. That's a really exciting development.
Mhm.
It's basically like giving soldiers a heads-up display right in their field of vision.
So they can see information about the battlefield overlaid on top of the real world.
Exactly. Things like enemy positions, friendly forces, maps, terrain data, all kinds of stuff.
Wow, that's like something out of a video game. It would be a huge advantage in combat.
It would definitely increase situational awareness and improve communication and coordination between soldiers.
And hopefully help to reduce casualties.
Exactly. That's always the ultimate goal. And then, of course, there's AI, which is playing an increasingly big role in warfare, both offensively and defensively.
Right, AI seems like it has the potential to completely revolutionize how wars are fought.
It does. It can process information much faster than humans can. So it can analyze battlefield conditions, predict enemy movements, and even make strategic decisions in real time.
So it's like having a supercomputer as your general.
Kind of.
Yeah.
It could potentially give you a huge advantage in terms of speed and efficiency.
But it also raises a lot of ethical questions.
Definitely. Like who's ultimately responsible when an AI makes a decision that leads to casualties?
And how do you prevent AI from becoming too powerful or even turning against us?
These are all things we need to be thinking about very carefully as AI continues to develop.
It's a double-edged sword for sure. It has the potential to do a lot of good, but also a lot of harm.
Absolutely. It all comes down to how we choose to use it.
So we've talked about super soldiers, invisible aircraft, AI-powered warfare. What else is there to consider when we think about the future of military technology?
Well, one thing that's often overlooked is the ripple effect that these innovations can have on society as a whole.
Oh, yeah, like how military technology often ends up being adapted for civilian use.
Exactly. A lot of the tech we use every day has its roots in military research and development.
Like, what are some examples of that?
Well, the internet, for starters,
Yeah.
that was originally developed by DARPA as a way to connect researchers and share information.
Wow, I didn't know that. And what else?
GPS is another big one.
Yeah,
That was originally developed for military navigation, but now everyone uses it to get around.
that's true. And what about things like drones and self-driving cars?
Those are both heavily influenced by military research in robotics and autonomous systems.
So the technology that's being developed for the battlefield could end up having a huge impact on our everyday lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. And it's not always a good thing either. Sometimes military technology can be adapted for purposes that are harmful or even dangerous.
That's a good point. It's something we need to be mindful of as we continue to push the boundaries of what's possible.
We do. It's important to remember that technology is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for evil.
I think that's a good place to leave it for now. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have. It's been a fascinating conversation.
It has. And it's definitely given me a lot to think about.
Me too. It's clear that the future of warfare is going to be very different from anything we've seen before.
Man, there's so much to think about here, and we didn't even touch on
It
everything.
really is a massive topic. We just kind of skimmed the surface.
Like, what about,
Yeah.
space? Are we going to be fighting wars in space someday?
I mean, it's not as far-fetched as it sounds.
Really?
We're already seeing the development of anti-satellite weapons, space-based surveillance, all that stuff.
It's like the final frontier of warfare.
Yeah, it's a whole other can of worms, really.
Maybe that's a deep dive for another day.
Definitely a topic worth exploring further.
For sure. But for now, I think we've given everyone plenty to chew on.
Yeah, I think so. It's really all about sparking that curiosity and getting people to think about these things.
Exactly. So big thanks to you for coming on and sharing all your insights with us. It's been really eye-opening.
Yeah, my pleasure. Always happy to chat about this stuff. It's important.
It is. And for everyone listening, if you're if you're interested in learning more about this whole world of military tech, I mean, we just scratched the surface. So
Yeah, do some digging.
yeah, definitely do some more digging. Some keywords you can search are like DARPA,
AI in warfare,
autonomous weapons systems.
space militarization, all that good stuff.
And remember, it's not just about the technology itself. It's about, the implications, the ethics.
The human side of it all.
Exactly, the human side of it.
Because ultimately, it's people who make the decisions about how this technology is used.
That's a great point. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next time.